drove up to Wyoming and, Garrison was our passenger.
I was the first one that held him. This is my son. I rocked him to sleep. This is part of my mourning process. It'll overcome me almost like some kind of anxiety attack. Just a deep, overwhelming feeling that I'll never see him again. There's so much left unsaid, so much left undone.
Welcome back to my channel. The good news for all of you is that Sister Wives TLC producers did not air the video footage of the ceremony and memorial by the Nevada National Guard for Garrison Brown. Thank goodness, TLC was totally at the event. There are photos of the cameraman Tim being there, all of that. And my sources mentioned that they arrived prepared to shoot, and this really caused a huge issue with the family. And so I guess they didn't release the footage, which is a good thing. I'm happy that that was not aired. But the storyline of Kody wanting to play the grieving father, a man who loses his son, positively took precedence in this episode. Actually, they performed the pilgrimage that was the Wyoming pilgrimage to have Garrison Brown buried. So now, in this episode, Janelle indicated that she wanted to bury him in Wyoming and that she wasn't a person who believed in cremation. And she always thought it was faith-based, but she said, "I learned that that's not a faith-based, even though it kind of is." The AUB in general doesn't condone cremation and they want their folk buried, and so that is a belief in the FLDS. I don't know about the LDS, I'm addressing the LDS and the AUB, but she said she consented to this burial in order to put him in a cemetery by her mother, so they buried an urn or whatever, not a casket. Either way, this episode was just so disjointed, very disjointed. And Kody and Robyn's quote-unquote pilgrimage to Wyoming had nothing to do with Garrison whatsoever. Actually, this episode included some major differences. Christine and David had sat down and played cards and discussed the loss. She discussed the final messages that she had received from him. She discussed the missing warning signs and touched very lightly upon the fact of these messages that she had received from him and what she might have done. David could relate to her in a manner he comprehended, since he shared that his wife had also ended her life and talked about the procedure he used to go through, having to inform his children, feeling failed because it occurred, blaming himself for it occurring, and just the whole process of grieving that accompanies a death such as this. It was quite apparent that David had been a great support to her, and it was also very apparent that Christine was extremely hurt and just devastated by this loss. And she talked about his plans, about how he'd just gotten accepted into nursing school. So there was this, on the one hand, individuals who knew Garrison, such as Christine and his mother, clearly Janelle, said so much within this, and I'll make a different video regarding that, but Janelle and Christine revealing real information regarding who Garrison was. And then Kody, quite similarly to what my source described, was taking all of this about himself. It had nothing to do with Garrison, and everything to do with Kody traveling to Wyoming in an effort to introduce his family to the signs that he sold like 20+ years ago to stores, neon signs that he did not create, that he merely sold. And then he sold a sign to a business, and so he showed his children a tour explaining all of the signs he sold. I was absolutely flabbergasted.
Two of the coolest signs in this town, like I sold probably 25, but two of the coolest ones, I want to go show them to you.
Okay.
This is in another life. This is what I did. That's my sign right there.
Oh.
We're not seeing the neon flash. I'm pretty sure the word saddlery has red neon in front of it. That sign was made out of an angle iron framing. So an angle iron is a piece of metal that's bent in half.
The whole segment of Robyn and Kody was so bizarre, and it was all Kody. It wasn't about Garrison at all. And Robyn had to keep interrupting the talking heads to attempt to remind people that they were there for Garrison. And it was so sad during this, and it was so heartbreaking for them, and this was not a time for them to have fun, but they were just there for Garrison. And this was a trip that they did every year, though. They return every year, and if you have to put overlays on and talk over and narrate what we are seeing and attempt to tell us what we're seeing is something other than what's on the camera, you're lying. Because what they had shown was them walking around Kody while Kody spoke about the bad signs that he sold like 25 years before. And the way that those companies haven't changed their signs since, that's crazy to me. And then Kody just rambling and rambling and rambling about the signs, which no one was interested in, obviously, then observing some kind of gun show type event, like a Wild West show. But then it rained, so they had to go inside the hotel and they went to eat. They walked into the saddle store that Kody posted the sign for. And it was totally strange. The guy was already wired up with a mic, so clearly it was staged that he was going to walk in there and converse with him. And he's crafting these saddles worth $20,000. And I'm thinking, you've got a $20,000 saddle you're constructing, but you've got that sign from 2000? Wow. And I'm not saying that you have to, redo your signs, but neon signs do expire and they will burn out. But more significantly, none of this was anything to do with Garrison. None of it. And what I thought was really bizarre was during the time they were on this pilgrimage, they must have brought the urn with them in the vehicle, and Robyn relates that Garrison rode in their vehicle to Wyoming as a passenger, which struck me hard in the gut, because you wouldn't have had Garrison in your car when he was alive, and now he's riding in your car when he has died, and you're upset about the fact that you're on a pilgrimage with a guy that you wouldn't even have in your house when he was alive. And a lot of what Robyn was talking about was not anything to do with Garrison and being upset that he was dead, but a lot of what, Kody was going to endure and the grief that Kody was going to feel and having the, appropriate coping skills and grief, my grief, so that it's not done inappropriately, so it's a healthy way of grieving. Near as to say that this pilgrimage or the manner in which Kody was behaving that day was unhealthy. I couldn't understand because clearly Kody was making the entire day about himself, and it had nothing to do with Garrison, and literally nobody was concerned with these ridiculous signs. I mean, Robyn even rolled her eyes once. And then even during dinner, they did not discuss Garrison. Instead, Robyn had a discussion about Kody's dad being a fan of the Wild West, and his dad was named after Buffalo Bill, whose surname was Kody, and then his dad switched it to a K. And then they had a discussion about Buffalo Bill being a ladies' man, and then Kody refuted that he was a ladies' man. And then it was just none of it had anything to do with Garrison. Again, this wasn't about Garrison. It was about Kody returning to Wyoming to brag about Kody coming back to his hometown to brag about who Kody is. But we already had this episode, Kody. Don't you recall when we returned to Lovell years and years and years ago for the same occasion, and you took all of your wives and you went public for the first time, and you went on a boat ride with Ken on the lake, and then all your classmates accosted you as a polygamist, and that girl whom you had a crush on was present there, and Robyn was present, by the way. So you have already done that pilgrimage to Kody, Wyoming. You're simply redefining the story with your kids right now that you're with. And then the other thing I picked up is that other brothers and sisters of Garrison talked about him. So in this show, we have Addie tell us, we heard from Savannah, and we heard from Gabriel. Okay, but despite the fact that Kody's children with Robyn were present on the show, not one of them said a word about Garrison. Nothing. Not a single word. Not, we miss him. We're so sorry that he's gone. They said nothing. Nothing.
Very friendly and maybe a bit of a ladies' man, I'm assuming. I don't think I'm a ladies' man at all.
You see the look?
Why is that so? I'm not saying I never claimed to be a ladies' man. I was a polygamist because of religion.
So whatever reason they do have this bizarre dialogue where they talk about Buffalo Bill being a ladies' man, and then Brianna shrugging her shoulders and mimicking Kody while then poking out her tongue and flapping it, most people know what that signifies when they do this with their tongue. I just thought it was bizarre. I was like, what are they saying? Why are they turning this discussion on Buffalo Bill into something erotic about Kody having wives and being a ladies' man? And then I also grossly realized that this whole family, they sit around and they just talk to Kody about how awesome Kody is. And then Kody has to discuss himself, how he is such a stud, and that also validates that Kody obtains his self-esteem and self-worth from having his family adoring him. You don't hear Robyn mentioning her good old days, or Robyn discussing herself, or even the kids discussing themselves. The entire whole thing that they were performing Or this entire filming situation was just so inappropriate when you think about the fact that a child is dead, and this is during a dinner on a trip for his burial where nobody's discussing Garrison.
Decided to go to the ranch tomorrow. And then Sunday, we're going to the graveside funeral. So that's it.
We're laying him to rest, but it's also because we love him. And I mean, that day is about him.
And we're doing happy things. And we're doing happy things so that we are moving on from mourning, so that we can have faith.
So we can believe. I see that individuals grieve at varying times, and they have waves, and life continues on. I understand completely. We have within my family experienced loss. I've also within my family never once earned a single dollar from the death of an individual in my family. I've never marketed my sorrow for influence or finances for a program, and I have never employed my grief or my absence of grief for a plot. And seeing Kody and Robyn attempt to fake tears for a child that they ignored, didn't care about, kicked out of the house, wouldn't let into their house, had no connection with, and then seeing them attempt to rewrite history and pretend like we've forgotten how they treated him, what Garrison thought of them, the abuse that he suffered because of them, and how Robyn wasn't welcome or wanted at any of these services for Garrison. Garrison never would have wanted Robyn there ever. He had such attention to her disdain, and her to be all like, "Oh, he's a passenger in my vehicle. Oh, the cemetery is going to be so heartbreaking. Oh, we adore him. We're laying him to rest. We're laying him to rest." And then Kody attempting to force a tear, discussing his son, and doing happy things because he, again, I feel like feels the need to prove that all of everything that we just witnessed had nothing to do with Garrison until that exact moment he says, "And then on Sunday we're going to attend the cemetery service. And I pray to God they do not air the service where they inter him. There are certain things that need not be publicized, and that would be one of them."
Poster will always be in my garage. And I will always see it and wonder what was missed in the future that would have been. And it's a game of consciousness to move with grief, to make your blood sweet instead of bitter.
And then for Kody to confess that a poster which was in the Nevada National Guard's memorial, okay, that poster is in his garage, which again proves that Garrison is not invited to Kody's house with Robyn. Even after he died, I know that Kody enjoys staying in his garage, but why would you hang a memorial poster of your son, which is from his military service, for the military of him, in his fatigues serving the military in your garage? You have a house that's full of ugly paintings, very ugly paintings, walls full to the top with ugly paintings, but you don't have room on the walls of your house for the photo of your son who served the military and this nation. He's in your garage still, demonstrating that Robyn doesn't desire Garrison in her house. Demonstrating this is completely phony. If you care about your child, put the picture in your house. There is no way on earth that needs to be in your garage. That's an afterthought. Not to mention garages aren't winterized. They reside in Flagstaff, which has cold. In season, that picture will be ruined because it's in a garage, period. And I also want to point out to say that Kody lied in this incident, where he mentioned that following his service, which was in Flagstaff, and subsequently following the service in Nevada, which they never talked about. Thank God. So once again, I'm thankful that the message got across to TLC. We don't want this on TV, right? He says, "Oh, I left his remains to his brothers. And 2 months later, I went in to pick them up. I left them as if they were his. I left his body was with his brothers." Kody never had custody of that body, and he never left them in anyone's hands. They were released to Janelle and her sons had custody of those until Kody apparently picked them up. Although I don't know that he was actually in Kody's car or not, because obviously they didn't show an urn on the show, so I don't know. But to bring up the point that he left them suggests that he did that like he had it in the first place, which he did not. And I know people have a hard time accepting that he wasn't on the birth certificate, but when Janelle went bankrupt in 1997, she didn't list Kody as a father. She listed only herself and only herself as a parent to 6 children, with no spouse or no other parent that could claim these children so that she could list them that way. She's saying he doesn't have rights over these kids. And incredibly 7 years or 8 years down the road, Kody then took her kids on his bankruptcy with Meri, even though he isn't on the birth certificate. Again, Kody's just a phony all around. Regardless of what happens here, this wasn't about Garrison. This, again, proving this was a narrative that Kody fabricated concerning Kody being the sorrowful father on a quest of losing his son throughout his grieving process. Thank the good Lord, the script of Robyn being the abused wife by the family was left in the cutting room. But Robyn's overall trope with this and her talking heads was, I need him to seek, healthy mechanisms of coping with his grieving. Robyn only cared about how Kody's action will affect her. Not if she's mourning for Garrison or how it affects her. It was like, well, death has a tendency to change people, and she hopes he finds good means of to cope with this because, selfishly, she does not want to have to cope with Kody's grief because she despises Garrison. That's my interpretation. And why is his photograph in the garage? Because Robyn detested Garrison. Garrison detested her, so it's all about them. It was nothing to do with Garrison. And that was shot in June or July. But the material with the Savannah and Janelle scene that I'll be discussing later this week was shot in April, so they weren't even shot at the same time. And if they're on this journey and they're with the family, why is there no sign of Kody connecting with his other children? Why isn't Kody there for his other children on camera? Oh yeah, because they don't want anything to do with him because of the way he treated Garrison. And that should be telling you everything you need to know. Do you see them with the other children? No, it's just gross, it's all a plot. I feel bad for the rest of the family that is having to deal with this. I do not feel bad for Kody Robyn, and I hate that they're doing the same thing to Garrison in death. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you don't already subscribe and click the bell so you never miss a video. Thank you so much for watching. Bye besties.